Welcome, welcome to Crafting a Meaningful Life. This is your life, this is my life. And together we get to craft something that is really wonderful. That when you get to be my age, I don't want you to be saying, dang, I really missed out. No, I want you to be joining with us in crafting this life full of joy and exploration. So many times people ask me, Mary, in your 70s, is there stuff still left to do? Oh my gosh, I'm going to live to be 105 just because I can't get it all in before then. So for today, I have the most amazing man on my podcast. I hope to shout that as I read his bio and his agent reached out to me and said, do you want to have Igor on? I read through and I was like, pick my jaw up. Absolutely. Because he's talking about the things that you and I talk about every single week about how to make the most of our life. And he has some tools that I think are going to really, really help both of us. So to that end, I welcome you, Igor. I hope I don't massacre your last name. Ledochowski?
That's nailed it. Thank you so much,
Oh, okay, great.
both for nailing
Well,
my name and for that wonderful intro.
Igor joins us today from Portugal, so we're very fortunate to have wisdom from across the seas with us today. Igor, as I read through your bio, I thought this guy must be already 100 years old to have accomplished everything
Right.
that you've accomplished in this life. So let's
hmm
start with the first part of your life.
Okay.
You are a lawyer. So
I was
obviously
a
that
lawyer. Yeah.
included
Yeah. Yeah.
law school.
I did.
And you worked for the most prestigious
I
law
did.
firm
I
in
did.
England. Yeah.
Yep.
And very accomplished in the legal world. And then all of a sudden, well, maybe it wasn't all of a sudden. I want you to share that process
Sure.
with us. You decided, maybe there's more that I have to give in
Mm,
this life. And so I want to learn about that transition and what
sure.
was your wake up call?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it was not easy, right? Because pretty much since I chose what I would be studying at university, my mind had been set on becoming a lawyer, hitting partnership track, and so on. Maybe it's a fantasy. As a kid, I used to watch, I don't know if you remember the show LA Law, and I thought it was
Oh, yes.
wonderful and sexy and all the suits and people are doing exciting things. I thought, I want to do that when I grow up. So I did that when I grew up, and I realized that the difference between TV and reality, shock horror, is big, right? It's not quite the same. So I found myself when I actually graduated and got a great job at a great law firm. Wonderful time. The first couple of years were fantastic. Hard work. I mean, you're working until 10 o'clock at night most days. 3 a.m. is not unusual. Happens several times a week. Weekends, 1 or 2
Yeah.
weekends a month. Very natural, right? So it's a lot demanded of you, but a lot is given back to you as well. And so it's a wild ride. But then, like everyone, I had my own stuff I needed to sort out. And somewhere around my second year in, everything started coming together. Like once the newness, the excitement, the rush of being, doing things that actually show up in the newspapers start coming out. Look, I was a very junior lawyer, so I was working on the transaction. I wasn't running the transaction, so we're very clear, right? Very junior lawyer. But long story short, a couple of things happened. First thing that happened was I was very alienated from my friends because I'm working so hard. They're all off going parties and doing this and that and the other, and I can't see them because I'm at work. Will you come to this? I'm sorry, I'm working. What about that? I'm sorry, I'm working.
Yeah.
What about this? Yes, I'll come. Oh, sorry, I'm working. Right? So I started getting really frustrated that my life was really just getting so narrow, like looking through life through a keyhole.
Mm.
And then the first thing I did was to shift that up. I decided to sign up for something that was as completely opposite the law as you can get. And this is when I enrolled in my very first hypnosis
Yeah.
school, right? Um, Long story short as to why it doesn't really matter too much. The point is, it was completely different. And for a year, 1 weekend a month, I would go to the school and would spend the entire weekend doing different hypnosis things and so on. And it was a blast, right? To the point where like waking up on Monday morning to go to work, my motivation to myself was, don't worry, 5 days time, Friday comes along and you'll be fine. Then the weekend will be and you'll be free, right? Whereas on the weekends, doesn't matter what happened, I was at the school. As an example, one of my friends had his 25th or something like that birthday, like a big celebration. And I went to it on a Friday night, It was huge, do hundreds of people there. We all crashed out at his house. It's like semi-adult, semi-student sort of vibe, if you think, right? Everyone was up until 3 a.m., just drinking and talking and crashing out. And then at 6 a.m., so 3 hours later, I get up because my school's about to start. It's across the other side of London. It's going to take me 3 hours to get there. So I need to leave around 6. I've already calculated ahead of time to get there. And that's when it hit me. It's harder for me to get up on a normal work day than to go to the hypnosis training after 3 hours of sleep and have to cross all the way from one end of town to the other end of town. And London is an enormous city. So we're talking about, it's almost like going to another city at that point, right? And that started me really, that jarred me a bit. That started me really thinking about what's going on here. That was one piece of the puzzle. Then a few months later, the second sort of kick came along. And that was one of the partners, again, great guy. So I have nothing but respect for the man. And I understand his situation completely. But he was one of the young partners, a really driven, go-getter type. Everything I was trying to emulate, if you will, right? And so the office gossip, and office gossip. Anyways, it goes around. He's having trouble now. He's sleeping under his desk, not because he's working on a project, but because his wife is no longer letting him stay at home. Long story short, it turns out he had an affair with an HR girl, and now he's getting a divorce, right? I understand why, once again, 24/7 at the office, barely ever seeing his wife. I can totally see why it would happen. Not in any way criticizing him, although, of course, it wasn't the right thing to do, but I can see why it would happen. And that was my biggest wake-up call, because here's the man who has everything I'm working to become. And he's sleeping under his desk and he's miserable because his life is blowing up. And I could just see myself 10, 20 years from now in exactly the same position. Only I was probably a little more fragile than him. So chances are my blow up would have been 10 times worse than his. And that's when I realized something's got to change. I have to go a different path. And then for the next year or so, I thought really long and hard about how that would look and what that would be. And long story short, eventually I resigned. Hardest day of my life, by the way, handing that resignation letter in. Terrifying. And then, the rest is history, I guess.
Wow. I love this story because you actually achieved your dream that you thought was your dream.
I did.
And then when you started living it, you realized,
not a dream.
This is not my dream. And there's more here. And I want more from life.
Yes.
But then the step, Igor, that so many people get hung up on is the courage step, the fear step. They let fear have a hold of them and they stay stuck.
Yes.
But you didn't do that. You threw fear out the window and jumped.
I don't want to pretend that I was Superman from day one. I'm doing it, right? No. I was like a year of really thinking hard about it because I was terrified of the consequences. I have no idea how to run a business, anything like that. Look, the the turning point for me was I was at a different hypnosis seminar. I was really enjoying these things. I felt like a different person going to these things. So I kept signing up to more and more. And the idea started forming in my mind that maybe hypnosis, maybe coaching or something like that, I could do something and still make a living, which is important, of course. And so I started asking everyone I met who I thought was good at what they do, how do you do it, right? How do you become a coach? How do you get clients? How do you get the skilled as you are? How do you know you can help people? How do you know when it was time that you could actually charge people for help? Every question under the sun. And one day I was, again, shocked. I think shock is really my way out of fear. Because I was at a seminar. There's a guy, the big guy, and I admired the bejesus out of him. The guy was so good, right? I mean, his language patterns, his hypnosis. When I was working with him and he's doing a trance, whatever, I'm just melting away into cloud nine. I'm thinking, this is the guy I want to follow. Whatever he's doing, I'm going to follow that path. So I asked him, how long have you been doing hypnotherapy professionally for? Because I was convinced this guy is a pro, right? His answer shocked me. He said, oh no, I don't think I'm ready for that yet. He's just a train driver. And that blew me away. And in that moment, I instantly recognized, here's a dilemma, right? You will never, ever feel ready. Ever. Yeah. Not going to happen, right? The only way to not become that is to just screw it, quit, move on, figure it out as you're falling. Because if I try and figure out beforehand, I can guarantee, knowing myself and seeing this man here, it will never happen for me. And that was a really important lesson for me, which is, if you're afraid of doing it, do it anyway.
Yeah.
Because nothing will come of it if you don't.
It's kind of, have you ever seen the movie, the Indiana Jones movie, when he's in search of the Holy Grail and he
Yes.
comes to that chasm,
Yes, yes,
and
yes. I love that scene.
he would be still stuck on
Yes.
the other side if
Yes.
he felt he had to find the bridge or
Yes.
figure it out or understand
Yes.
it and be
Yes.
100% sure that the bridge was there before he stepped
Yes.
out. But he
Yes.
took that step of faith
That's
of
it.
like, all right, I know what I'm to do. And he just
That's
steps
exactly
out
it.
and it's there for him.
That's it.
And that's what
Right?
happened to you. Now you
Yeah.
are not just a run of the mill kind of therapist.
Ha.
May I just say, first of all, let's go to your website, for example.
Okay.
And on your website, it talks about all these different kinds of hypnosis that you do, from
Yeah.
conversational hypnosis. That one really intrigued me. That
Right.
while we're having this conversation, you could
Yep.
be hypnotizing me. That was like,
Absolutely.
love that one. And then you have the self hypnosis, which I think
Yep.
most people are thinking,
Of
oh, I'd
course.
like to know that. But then as I scrolled down here,
Hmm.
you have over 100 hypnosis training programs.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
You have trained over 100,000
Yes.
people to be hypnotists.
Yes.
That number blew me away.
Me
Named
too.
number one hypnotist blog, training in over 30 countries, students in over 75 countries. I mean, you're like the real deal. You're like at the top of the mark,
Thank you.
right?
Yeah.
You
Well,
are.
thank you. Yeah. I mean, again, first of all, just to be clear, I can't do that all on my own. I have a big team that helps me. Otherwise, there's no way I could do all those things.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think it's just a question of, look, I didn't even set out to achieve all those things, right? When I first started as a hypnotherapist, I was not very good at all, right? In fact, I remember my first client. He was terrified. He was a teenage boy, 17 years old. He had some problems. He'd moved schools, having some problems adjusting to it. So they asked some help for that. I took the case on for a fiver, for just £5, because I had no confidence in my skills, but I figured I have to charge something, right? So I show up and he's sweating like a bucket because he's about to meet the big bad hypnotist. And I'm sweating like a bucket because the first time I actually got a real client. So both sitting there terrified of each other, sweating like buckets. And the first session went, okay. I helped him a little bit. I think I probably helped him through some of what he was dealing with, but ultimately I'm not going to pretend that I was particularly excellent at it. And again, that's the difference between theory and practice and reality, right? And so I started asking questions. What went wrong? What's missing? What I need to add? What would give me a better experience? Why am I getting better experiences in the classroom than I'm having in life? Right? How do I break down this word salad people give you when you ask them about their problems and what they want? How do I break that down to figure out which piece of that are relevant enough to actually do anything about? So many questions. And so this is one thing where law really did help. It taught me to think very methodically
Very logically.
and to catch
Yeah.
BS. There's a lot of BS, or at least there was a lot of BS in hypnosis at the time, right? Claims that cannot be backed up, shall we say. Some of those claims may actually be true, but then you have to actually watch the practitioner. Can he actually do what he says he'll do rather than just talking about theory, right? And so all these questions were running through my mind, and I decided to one day just start answering them, right? Either by reading books, going to other courses, but most importantly of all, by applying whatever answers I found to the clients I was getting, right? Which means sometimes I had stellar results, sometimes I had awful results, and the distance between them is where I grew, shall we say, as a hypnotist. And then when I started going online to teach, a friend of mine and I got together to start, which is now the Hypnosis Training Academy. I never had the sense that I know everything there is to know now. I'm good to go. Let's just do this, right? There's always another question. Every time a question gets answered, 5 more get raised. So I'm like sitting here cutting the heads of hydras, trying to answer more and more and more questions. And then 25 years later, I look back and go, wow, there's a lot of heads rolling around here. But that's all it is. It's just asking questions because I want to know. I want to know the answer, and I want to have the skill that goes with that answer as well. The two aren't always the same. Information and knowledge, they're not necessarily the same thing. And that's really what led to it. So the complete accident, as far as I'm concerned. I didn't set out to create an encyclopedic of hypnosis. I just set out to explore.
And isn't that the best way?
Hmm.
I love that.
Hmm.
So this doesn't have really where I wanted to go, but I'm curious from a personal level.
Sure.
So obviously, you probably did some book learning,
Yes.
some attending some
Yeah.
lectures, did you,
Tons.
learning from
Tons.
the masters, those
Yeah,
kinds
yeah.
of
I
things.
spent over 100 grand just finding the best hypnotists I could find
Yeah.
and studying
But
with
it,
them.
but at
Yeah.
some point,
Yeah.
you had to realize you had as much knowledge as anyone else, and yet
Yeah.
you still wanted to grow.
Yeah.
And so I always have a theory that I live my life on, that the answers that I'm still seeking
Hmm.
oftentimes are already found within me.
Yeah.
And that if I just get quiet,
Yeah.
I can teach myself. Is that
Yep.
any part of how you have
100%.
continued? Oh, really? Okay, tell
100%.
me about
So,
that.
so let me explain why. Whenever you go to someone's training, quite rightly, they teach you what they know, how they do things, and then you operate under their set of premises, their assumptions about the world, about how the mind works, etc. And if you adopt those premises, then their methods work. But of course, I went to lots of different schools because I didn't care about the style. I cared about the hypnotists, people with great reputations who actually did impressive things. I want to see them in action. So I saw there's many different schools of hypnosis, shall we say. And like in many parts of life, they all bicker about which one's the best one and why the other one is useless, right? But as far as I was concerned, the hypnotists I was choosing, they were all good hypnotists, but they're saying opposing messages. So what's going on here? And what that forced me to do is to think in terms of principles. In other words, although these two people seem on the surface to be doing something completely diametrically opposite, when you dive under the surface, if you let go of their kind of the surface structure of whatever they're doing, they're actually operating the same principle. They're just expressing it differently. And that is the liberation. And I thought, when there's a principle, well, how would I like to express that principle, right? So I'm not doing it like you or him or him. I'm doing it like me. And also when I'm teaching, I don't want you to copy me. I understand that a little bit of copying is important at the start just to get the experience going. But I always tell my students, if 10 years from now, you're still doing the techniques I taught you, then I have failed. Because you're
Ah,
supposed to create your own style. If you understand the principles, you can express your own personality, your own needs, your own perceptions about life through those principles, and a unique style will emerge that's completely yours. And so that's
yeah.
that's kind of how I looked at things. It was never about being like anyone else. It was about understanding what principles allowed them to be like that, so I could be my version of that. I'll give you a really dramatic example of this, if I may.
Yes.
One of my mentors, John Overturf, has this amazing course on language, really complicated language patterns that spin your mind out into nirvana in all kinds of ways. It's amazing, right? And for years and years, I tried studying what he did and repeating his language patterns. It worked a bit, it didn't work a bit, and I just couldn't get my head around how the hell is this man doing it and doing it so gracefully and so naturally and so easily. It really bugged me. And then one day I realized I will never, ever in my life be as good as him at that. But then he'll never be as good at what I do as I am because he's just expressing his personality through this thing. And then when I started looking at it like that, I started asking myself, well, what are the principles he's using to generate these language patterns? So now I'm going to use the same principles and generate my own. So now I talk differently to him, but we have the same impact. I can never be as good as him. I can do a good copy, but it's always going to be a copy. But as soon as I express the principles through me, I do something so unique that now my students have the exact same feeling about me. They say, oh, I'll never do as good as you. No, nor are you supposed to. In fact, I
Yeah.
encourage you to never do it like me. Do it like you.
Yes. That is such a true principle. I have people say to me, "Oh, I would like to do the way you do, Mary." And I'm
Mhm.
like, that's the last thing this world needs is 3 billion Marys running around. We don't need that. We need
No.
one Mary and
Yes.
then a billions of other people bringing their
Doing their
own
own thing.
light. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the things that really just, and to my listeners, Igor agreed to do this today, even though he's feeling a little under the weather. So we have to pardon his little coughing thing,
Yes.
but
Thank you
it's
so much
not,
for
yeah, no
your
worries
feedback.
there. But okay, for example, you have two things that just grabbed my brain when I was reading about them. And one, you offer this program for even people who live here in the United States. Okay, this program of how to unleash
Mary,
the
I
power.
could ask you to just repeat that.
Yes,
Mary,
you have
apologies, you just frozen me a second. Would you repeat that again?
you have this program of how to unleash the power of the mind.
Yes.
And that I'm going to include the link for at the end of this podcast, as well as all of your website and as well
Thank
as
you.
all your handles, so people can
Thank you.
glitch onto you. I'm following you everywhere now, just so you know.
Thank you, Mary. I'm very flattered.
But you also had this one thing that I opened up, mind blowing,
Okay.
and it's called the Daily Mind Training.
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay. So I read through it.
Yes.
First, the description, and that's why it really took me, because it said, leverage a unique combination of hypnosis,
Yep.
mindfulness,
Yep.
which I feel like my life revolves around, and neuroplasticity.
Yes.
Okay, now that is not a big word to me. I'm familiar with that as someone who is aging.
Of course.
And wanting to have my brain be very functional and fluid
Absolutely
and not
correct.
like a brick, to gradually rewire my mind's circuitry,
Yep.
even at no matter what age we are, to create, these are the best part you wrote, inner balance, enhance your awareness and attention, and get your mind operating to its full potential. What if we could take this little tiny piece of our brain that we use and use all of it?
Yep.
So I clicked on this and I went and I looked. All of this right here is free.
Okay.
It's free. You offer this piece free. And so I'm like, okay, well, what kind of things and every single one of these things that were listed here, I thought, oh yeah, I felt that. Oh yeah, I want to overcome that. Yeah, having a naggy sense that something feels off. Oh yeah, I'm there. Okay. And you are offering this gift to people. So I'm going to include this link as well, because I want people to be able to find that.
Thank you.
So as someone, to my listeners who now want to take the first step and embark on this, they can understand being mindful because they listen to me.
Of course.
They can understand the neuroplasticity because that's a physiological, it's a physiological thing, and they can say, okay, that's just like still using your body and exercising every day. But many people are fearful of hypnosis.
Of course.
So let's start with that. What about those people who are like, I don't want someone to hypnotize me? I've seen those shows where they get people to go up on stage and act like idiots. I'm not going to do that. So how do you address that?
So here's the thing. First of all, like most things, and I told you I was deluded by TV to think that working as a lawyer was a very different thing to actually how you work as a lawyer. So TV hypnosis and real hypnosis, they're not in even the same ballpark. There's a lot of showmanship involved, like in a stage show, for example. People think that there's a control thing going on, but really there isn't. But think about it this way. The only people who are running around clucking like chickens are the ones who actually volunteered to go on stage. If you don't want to act like a chicken, you don't go on stage. So it's a catch-22, if you see what I mean. You only go up because some part of you wants to be there and have the freedom, shall we say, to be a bit of an exhibitionist. And those people who dread that idea would never in a million years go up on stage. So the conditions are invisibly already preset for the, shall we say, entertaining part of hypnosis to occur, right? It is often said that all hypnosis is really self-hypnosis because all the magic of it is happening inside your mind, in your brain, in your neurology, right? So it doesn't matter what I do, it matters what's happening inside of you, right? And what hypnosis really does, whether it's self-hypnosis, which is you doing it on yourself, or heterohypnosis, which is me guiding you through something. But even if I'm guiding you, if you think about it, you're still doing it, right? It's a lot like doing push-ups. I can tell you about push-ups. I can correct which level your elbow should be at. I can remind you that you should use more of your chest or whatever it might be. But ultimately, You have to do the push-up because I can't get strong for you. Does that all that make sense so far?
Yes. Yes.
So what hypnosis really is communicating directly with the subconscious. And why is that important? Because all learning, all behavior, and all change happens subconsciously first. So as far as I'm concerned, let's go to the part of the mind that really makes these things happen easily and activate that so these things happen easily. As a quick example, you ever surprise yourself with how good you did something? You had no idea. Maybe you're going through like a tough situation, people yelling and shouting, and suddenly you know exactly what to do or exactly what to say. You do it, you say it, and it works great. And you come back afterwards, you think back on it and you think, where did that come from? I didn't go in planning that. I didn't even know I could do that. It's the first time in my life I've done this, and yet it worked perfectly. Ever happened to you?
Yes, it has.
It's happened to most people. Why? Because that's this subconscious. That's your subconscious potentials that aren't normally being expressed, deciding this is a good time to express it, and out it comes. That is what hypnosis is. It's recruiting that part of your mind that has all these untapped potentials and activating it. You see, a lot of people think of hypnosis as a deactivation. In other words, I'm going to turn off your conscious mind. I'm going to turn off your willpower. I'm going to turn off your ability to do this and that and the other. So all that's left is this tiny little sliver of reality, which is the one I'm going to suggest. And there's a little bit of truth to that, but not so much. The better way to look at hypnosis is about activating potentials. So what makes you you? What makes you you is there's two versions of you in some ways. There's the inner you, the one that you really are, and you can kind of feel at home in your skin, if you will. And then there's the outer you, the one that you show to the world. And you know, we all know that we're not quite the person everyone thinks we are, right? Maybe we're close and maybe we try and live up to it, but we always put a slight spin on our personality in front
We're
of the
a little
world.
bit of imposter syndrome going on in
The
everyone.
whole world does it, right? And so we're all imposters. So let's imposter together, right? But why is that? So I call this a mask. It's a mask that we show the world to be able to relate to it. Because otherwise it's very difficult to function, right? Conversations are very difficult things to have otherwise. So the mask basically says, here's a sketch of me. Treat me like this, right? I'm a likable person. I'm a kind person. I'm a strong person. I'm a force of nature, whatever it might be. We have these things which we call our personality. But it's really just a mask that we're wearing through which we filter this much larger set of potential that is us. The problem with the mask is once we start believing that we're this mask, we forget all the other potentials that don't belong in this tiny little category. And we pretend to ourselves that we're incompetent because a skill set that does not get reflected in this little mask that we show the world, because we can't see it because we don't use it here, but it's still lying dormant within us. And what hypnosis does is, all really hypnosis is, and this is why it looks so dramatic, is it removes the mask temporarily. It says, it's okay, you don't have to be social right now. You don't have to pretend. Social psychology knows this. The moment someone feels like someone else is observing them, whether it's a camera or someone's in the room, they will fundamentally behave differently, right? So what happens when you remove that need to be seen a certain way, to be part of a sort of social context? When we remove that, then all you have access to is all those potentials in the periphery, just like the tip of the iceberg. The tip is all the stuff that's in the mask. The 90% under the water is all the unconscious potentials that you haven't expressed.
Okay.
And that's what hypnosis taps and activates and opens up. So when you surprise yourself with how good you were in some scenario, basically the drama, the pressure, the heat of the moment basically misaligned your social mask just long enough for this other hidden talent to emerge. But then, of course, when it started working, it snapped right back in again. You went, oh, no, there it's gone again, right? Or if you're lucky, when it snaps back in again, the mask has grown slightly because now you has to include the thing you just did, right? Both versions can happen. So all hypnosis is let's take the mask off and find out all the things you're capable of when you're willing to not be you, or at least to not be the you thought you were.
Okay, so that begs the question for me.
Yeah.
Here's like the iceberg that you gave
Yes.
us. Here's you down here,
Yes.
and
Yes.
this is the part we let people see.
Yes.
And you're going to remove the mask from the bottom piece during hypnosis. My
Yeah,
question is,
the mask is really an external thing. So you're all those things simultaneously. It's just the mask is, think of it like those kids' games where you put a star and a triangle through different shaped holes. The mask is just a shaped hole that says only stuff that's fit like this can come through. Everything else gets repressed, right? So it's always there. It's just being repressed because the mask won't let it through. Does that kind of make sense?
yes. So after hypnosis, do you continue to have access,
Yep.
conscious access to this piece?
Well, what does conscious access really mean, though? So here's what I mean by that. Yeah, you don't tell me what it is, but can you think of your phone number? Where was that number 2 seconds ago?
In my brain?
But where? You have no recollection of where it was, how it came to you, or you don't even know how you retrieved the number. All you knew is I made a request and the number was there. But you don't know the process your brain went through to retrieve that number. Does that make sense?
Right, right.
It just happens. Now it feels like you're consciously in control. Why? Because you create an illusion. You've decided, I want this information. Now I have this information. But what you've really done is you've trusted your unconscious to provide you the information you need when you need it. Does that make sense? And in those places where you expect the information to be present, like with a phone number, it is. And those places where you expect it not to be present, typically it is not. It's a bit of an oversimplification, but the power of belief is incredibly strong. I'll give you a quick example of this. This works for kids and adults as well. It's called the Batman effect. You give kids a math test, right? And they do however they do. Then you ask the kids to imagine that they're the smartest kid in the classroom and to answer the next test as he would answer it or she would answer it, right? They take another test of equivalent difficulty, and without exception, everyone rises a few points in their scores. Why? Think about it. Why? Same kids, same math. The difference is in what potentials they're recruiting. And it's not a conscious thing in the sense of now I want you to, I want you to access this and do the other. No. The game of becoming, put on the Batman mask, if you will, or in this case, the math mask, it's a way of stimulating an unconscious response. And that's what we're after. So if you want real control, to have real control, you've got to let go of control. Because it's only when you let go of control that everything opens up and starts emerging. Otherwise, you activate what's called the law of reverse effect. The harder you try, the more likely it is you'll fail because you're interfering with a natural process. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes, very much
Like
so.
as a kid, I was at school and I tried desperately, new school, first day or two at school, desperately trying to fit in and impress the other kids. And they're playing soccer in England. Everyone plays soccer in the playground because they know, if I'm any good or not. They stuck me in goal. That's the standard place to put someone you don't know what to do with, right? And they're playing around and suddenly this guy comes in, he sneaks past everyone, he wallops the ball, everyone is dismayed, that's it, they're about to, lose a major point. And I didn't have a chance to think, I just collapsed my knees, stopped the ball, and everyone thought I was a hero. I thought, this is fantastic. I didn't even think about this, right? 2 minutes later, I kid you not, 2 minutes later, someone kicks the ball lazily, it kind of slowly putters past everyone, and they look at it and go, no, whereas Igor's got it, right? And I'm thinking like, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. I'm going to be really good. And it goes literally between my feet and, well, devastating. Right? What's the difference? Right?
Yeah.
The difference is I didn't stop that first ball. My unconscious did. My natural reflexes did. I was so surprised I didn't have a chance to interfere. It just happened. The second time, I interfered, and I interfered a lot. And as a result, my natural ability to time things and find structures, to collapse on the ball, whatever it might be, that got blocked. I actually repressed my ability to play football in that moment because I was trying so hard to be good at it. So, in a weird roundabout way, the trick to life is to give up. And I don't mean give up like I'm not doing anything, but give up the need for control. I think this is what the Taoists talk about when they talk about the state of no state, the effortless action or non-action, right? It's where the action happens spontaneously, unconsciously, as opposed to gets forced consciously. Now, the conscious mind has a role to play. It still says, here's the direction. Here's where we're going to end up. It's just, I don't know how to end up there. So I'll just set the direction and then relax and let my nervous system respond to every little change in the world as it happens, because consciously I can't keep up.
Yeah.
but unconsciously I can.
It's what I refer to as your natural knowing, that you
Yes.
just naturally know.
Yes.
Growing up, I never played a team sport.
Right.
My dad was a baseball player, professional.
Right.
Never taught me how to play ball, catch a
Right.
ball, throw a ball.
Right.
So now I'm an older woman and still can't catch or throw a ball.
Right.
Recently, 4 years ago, I met a gentleman and remarried, and he is,
Congratulations.
guess what? A
What?
baseball player.
Oh no.
And the first time he threw me a ball, I went,
Right.
ah,
Yeah.
and he goes, how come you aren't catching that ball? I said, I can't catch a ball. I never learned.
Mm,
And so we
mm.
practiced this little bit, throwing back and forth, catching the ball, letting me throw one
Right.
back, blah, blah. And I still wasn't very good at it. The other day, we were on the pickleball court,
Hmm.
and he threw a ball at me. I
Right.
saw it coming. I reached up, caught it here backwards, just like out of thin air. And he said, you caught that ball. I went, yeah, I saw it coming.
Yep.
And he said, try that again. He threw another one at me. And of course, I couldn't catch it.
Of course. Of course.
So I just need to go back to letting more of my subconscious, my
That's it.
instincts, my
That's it.
natural ability
Yeah.
catch balls.
That's it. I mean, this is, I think, what everyone means when they say the advice of just trust yourself. Yeah. But which self are you trusting? How do you do that? Right.
Yeah.
And then the answer is you do it by thinking less, not by thinking more. Right. There's a time to think, and there's a time to do. You can't do both at the same time. If you try to do both at the same time, I can guarantee you'll screw up both.
I
Right?
love
Unless
that.
unless the action is really simple, like chewing gum and thinking, well, okay, that's fine, right? But if the more difficult the task is, the less you can think about it as you are doing it. Otherwise, you are interfering. But by the same token, once the action's over, it's very important to think back on it, to reflect on it, to find out what parts of this is what made it work, so I can do more of that later. So, like when you think about the ball, if you think about the moment that you realized where the ball was going and how that felt in your body, right? And then importantly, the moment you allowed your hand to find a position, you didn't think about consciously if it's in the right position, you didn't doubt yourself, you didn't question it, you just
No.
allowed your hand to move. The more you investigate that feeling, the more you'll know how to catch a ball without trying, because you're just allowing that moment to recreate itself. Does that make sense? You can't think about it in the traditional sense, you can't analyze it, but you can re-experience it to the point where the neurological connection for just letting go occurs. And at that point, well, you'll be a pro at catching balls.
Because it's not that I don't have good hand-eye coordination. I
Clearly
can do a
not. You would never
million,
have caught the ball
million,
otherwise.
yeah, I can do a million other things. I just can't catch a ball.
Yeah.
But I'm going to
And so
first of all stop telling myself that I can't catch a
this
ball.
is exactly it.
I am such a great catcher.
Yes. Yes. You nailed it, right? And look, there is a bit of a leeway you have to play with this a little bit as well, because if you say something that your subconscious does not believe in, you actually create a distortion internally. I mean, to give you a quick example, this is, let's see if we can do the essence of self-hypnosis in about 4 minutes. Would that be cool?
I would love that, I
All right.
think.
So let's try this. Are you
Okay.
familiar with affirmations, no doubt, right?
Yes.
And you know that sometimes they work really well and sometimes they're awful. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
So here's the difference. I'd like you to just tell me something about yourself, a quality that you know is absolutely true. You have no doubts about it. Like you're a patient person, you like people, you're a good talker, something you like about yourself. What would that be?
Love.
Love. So
I am a very loving person.
you're exactly. Now just say that. I'm a very loving person, and then feel into your body. Notice how your body feels, a little warm glow, a relaxation, a sense of, damn right I am. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
All right. So now let's do the same, another quality, but this time it's a quality you wish you had, or at least you wish you had a lot more of. So maybe a classic one would be something like patience or something like that, where technically it's possible and you'd like to have it, but for some reason you're not quite there yet, right? And it could be something simple as like, I love going to the gym when people really struggle. It doesn't really matter what the content is. What comes up for you for that?
All right. I know my husband would like me to say, could you choose patience, please?
Okay. So now say, I'm a patient woman.
I'm a patient woman.
How does that feel? Different, right?
Yeah.
your body distorted. Can you feel that? There's a sense inside you that says, no, you're not. Stop lying to yourself. That's very important. Never lie to yourself. Truth is so, so important, especially with a good relationship. And you want a good relationship with yourself. So if you lie to yourself, well, you're just destroying your relationship with yourself. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
And here lies the conundrum with affirmations, because they're essentially asking you, and think about it in the terms, affirm. You're affirming what's true. But most of the times, we don't want to affirm what's true. We want to affirm something that's not true because we want it to become true. So what do we do? How do we get out of that quandary? Right?
Yeah.
The way we do it is we got to be very careful about adjusting our language to something that is true enough that is acceptable. So, for example, if I am a patient woman doesn't work, you might say something like, and let's see how this works for you. Tell me if another one works better. I've been patient before. Is that true?
Yes.
Right? So now say, I have been patient in the past.
I have been patient in the past.
Notice the difference instantly, right? Your whole body is much more relaxed. So that's your opening salvo, right? So you start with what your unconscious, your body will accept. And then over time, you repeat that and repeat that and repeat it. And slowly going from, I have been patient in the past to, I like it when I'm patient. And that might turn to, I catch myself being patient more and more often. And then slowly but surely, you're changing the languaging to the point where eventually you can just say, no, totally true. I'm a patient person. And it feels internally consistent. At that point, your self-suggestion is now working. It's creating a whole new reality for yourself. But notice you have to go through stepwise process because, and this is the biggest problem people have, you cannot lie to yourself. Never, ever lie to yourself. It just destroys your ability to progress, to grow. And this is one of the reasons I think it's very important that we can't force people what things to say, because you're essentially asking them to lie to the world and essentially lie to themselves. And what it's going to do is create internal distortions, more and more conflict. And those poor people will just eventually just end up a mental and emotional mess because they're filled with lies.
Okay, you just have taken a big pin and popped my bubble, because I think of all those times that I have encouraged people in the world of affirmations, that I said, these will, let's talk about some affirmations for you on the Post-it note, on your mirror. Every morning, you're going to read these affirmations. And so I'm getting people to look into their own eyes and lie to themselves.
Yeah. Look, you can use an affirmation you don't quite believe in. If you add enough emotion, it can override that, right? But it's very difficult to consistently maintain that emotion. Hence, I don't prefer that approach, right? The problem is, it's just conditioning. If every time you say the term, you feel bad, you're conditioned yourself to feel bad around patience. So you're not going to be very patient. But on the other hand, when you say something like, I'm a very loving person, and that feels good, now you're conditioning yourself to feel good around that idea, which means your unconscious is going to keep going down that path. Do you see how that works? So you're always looking for internal alignment. And hence, I would always check with someone, what is the impact of it? Let me offer you this phrasing. How does that feel? Okay, let's twist it around or tweak it around a little bit until we have, okay, now you know what you'll do for the next couple of weeks. And then you can tweak it from there, right? No one said you have to eat the elephant all at once. It's okay.
I love
just
this.
Nibble along.
Yeah, I love this. And so it is a matter then of finding the affirmation that is true for you.
True enough.
True enough. I like that.
True
and begin
enough.
at that point and then move from there.
Exactly. True enough just basically says, I can accept that. It's not entirely true, but I'm not going to argue because I can accept that, right? That's the key. That's your point of change. Because you can accept it. You're not rejecting it. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
And once you start accepting, your capacity grows. Now you can accept bigger things and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And suddenly your world is totally different. That's how I created all these courses. I didn't set out to create them. I've got literally hundreds of those things. Sometimes my business partner calls me up and says, oh, why don't we reteach that seminar? I said, I taught that seminar? Tell me more. He has to literally tell me about a seminar I taught 10 years ago because I've created so much content I've forgotten about it, right? But it's an incremental approach. I'm not setting out to outperform everyone in the field with content. I'm just setting out to answer questions I'm interested in, things that are in my capacity. There are some questions I can't answer yet, so I put them off for later. I'll ask a smaller question that at least goes in that direction, and I'm building up to the question I really want to ask. And there's some questions I've been asked for over 20 years, I still haven't, I'm still not ready to answer them, but it's okay. I'm not dead yet.
Yeah. You know, I think this concept I used in the concept of fear,
Hmm.
and I wanted to be a fearless person.
Yes.
And so I just took pieces of fear and
That's
worked on
it.
them. Like
Yes.
I am no longer afraid of this, and I could use
Hmm.
that affirmation, and then rather than saying I am fearless and all things are easy
Yeah.
for me. I mean,
Too
you don't
much.
start there. You that's
Too
like too
much.
big.
Too much.
Yeah,
Plus, you
yeah.
don't want to be fearless in all things. If you're standing in the middle of a highway and there is a 2-ton truck racing towards you, and you go, I am the Zen, I am the Buddha, nothing frightens me, that's a bad time to not be afraid.
Yes,
Do you know what I mean?
it is. I do.
It's
And
debilitating fears we want to overcome, not enabling fears, right? These fears are good, they protect us. So I
yeah,
don't think we should remove fear. We just need to remove fear from the places where it doesn't belong.
I think there's a big difference between stupidity and fearlessness.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes. And if nothing else, if you get that one wrong, the gene pool has just been reset.
Yeah. All right, we are well past our time, Igor, but I have loved speaking with you. So
Thank you,
I
Mary. So have
have
I.
just
Thank you
keep
so much.
going. So as we end this,
Yeah.
there's so much here. I
Mm.
mean, we could pick any one little topic and have
Yeah.
spent 45 minutes on one thing. So let's try and bring it down
Yep.
to
Okay.
one step, the first
Yes.
step that you would offer to those women and men who are watching that are
Yeah.
ready to craft a new life.
Yeah.
What would you see as their first step into the passageway?
So I'll say it a little crudely and I'll explain. Ask yourself why and what. And what I mean by this is this. You need energy, you need fuel to take off from the Earth, to go into orbit, right? No fuel, you're just stuck there. And you need fuel and you need a destination. In other words, if I want to hit the moon, but I'm facing the South Pole, I might have the best rocket ship ever, but all I hit is the South Pole. I'm not actually aimed at the right place, right? So what's our first step? Well, fantasize, dream. Who would you like to be? Why? What would you be doing? Why? What is the essence of it? And know that whatever fantasy you have, it's okay to be a complete fantasy. It could be completely unrealistic. That's not the point of the fantasy. The fantasy points at a truth. And what is that truth? What is the essence of that fantasy? That if you stripped away all the fantastical parts of it, would still be left intact. As a quick example, a lot of guys want a Ferrari, right? If you ask 100 people, would you like 100 guys if you want a Ferrari? And maybe 80 of them say, sure, I'll take it, right? But then you ask them why. And they'll have totally different answers. One wants a status. One wants to feel the power. One wants to have an experience. One wants to feel like they're rich. One wants to have other people admire them as they drive by. So they all want the Ferrari for different reasons. So really what they want is something completely different. The Ferrari is just a symbol of what it is they want to get. So your fantasy is just a symbol of what you really want. So indulge in the fantasy without any pressure to try and manifest it because you don't need it. You only need the fantasy to detect the essence of what you really want. If you strip away the fantastical elements, what's left? The feeling of self-respect, the sense of belonging, the sense of having made it, right? Whatever that is, that's where you go. You'll have fuel and destination built into one. Does that make sense?
You have no idea. Because that is the quest I feel of this life
Yes.
is to know that we are enough
Yes.
without any of that.
Yes.
And so that makes complete and total sense and the perfect way to end our podcast.
Thank you.
Igor, would you consider coming back?
Be delighted to. Just
I
reach out
have
to my
so
team and
many
I'll
more
take part in it.
things. I'll reach back
Happy.
out to James. You
Yeah.
are incredible. And you have a way of putting things that for me is so clear. And you have this
Thank you.
comfort level about you that I could
Thank you.
sit and listen to you and take your advice and want to learn from you forever. So thank you so
Thank you. That's
much.
very kind. I've
And
really
to
enjoyed
all
this
my,
conversation as well.
all right, thank you for being with me. And thank you to all of my listeners who were here today. And remember to make it a great day by simply tuning in to who's inside and what's inside and what are they saying to you today. Thank you.
Crafting a Meaningful Life.